Hello everyone and welcome to NFL Discussion. I'm your host and NFL enthusiast Dougie Doug. In today's episode I'm going to be discussing Thursday Night Football, Week 6 of the 2022 NFL season. So this Thursday Night Football game, we finally got a touchdown. Didn't have one last week, but we got one this week. And we almost had a second one, but we were inches away from that. And we'll go ahead and get right into the action because there's quite a few things to talk about. So we'll go ahead and start with the Commanders. Carson Wentz completed 12 of 22 passes for 99 yards. Yeah, that's the stat line. And if you thought there was no way that this game could be worse than Colts Broncos, you would be wrong. And an iconic Thursday Night Football slop fest improving on last week's Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan anti-duel in every way. Wentz generated under 100 yards of net offense and got the wins in it. Anyways, he was so close, 1 yard away from 100. Unable to hit even simple throws while dealing with injuries both to his throwing hand and right ankle, and also his bicep too. Wentz's best play was handing off the ball to Allen Robinson, especially after halftime. The only time Wentz came close to making a big play in the passing game, Curtis Samuel ended up dropping a gift-wrapped 40-yard touchdown. It was that kind of night. It's also been that kind of year for Wentz, though this is the first time he finished below 170 yards passing. He has now failed to exceed 211 yards in 3 of his past 4 starts, and the Packers are on deck for the Week 7 home date, though the Packers fans might take over FedEx Field. So, takeaways for the Commanders from this game. The run game did just enough with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. They were able to grind their way to a short week road win. Wasn't pretty, but it was effective. It's also clear that Scott Turner and Ron Rivera have very little trust in remaining in high leverage situations to call for even moderately risky throws. And at this point, Wentz is who he's going to be, an average single color who can't carry an offense. And arguably his biggest contribution in the game was laying out Roquan Smith with a block for running back Brian Robinson. So yeah, it's well, man, the Commanders' issues, aside from Dan Snyder, were on full display on Thursday nights, and I guess everybody got to see that the Commanders aren't better off with Carson Wentz, and also Ron Rivera might be out of a job depending on how this season turns out. As for the Bears, Justin Fields completed 14 of 27 passes for 190 yards, 1 touchdown and an interception, adding 12 carries for 88 yards. That's a better stat line. And his rushing yards in this game were the second most of his career. Another start where Fields made a few splash plays but missed far too many layups. Slowly react and go through his reads. He was also lucky to make it through this game as he took a number of nasty hits to his midsection, struggling to peel himself off the turf at least 4 to 5 times. He had just 121 scoreless yards of total offense at the half, but was a little better after the break, as that's where he found out the Pettis for highlight reel 40-yard score down the left sideline and uncorked a 39-yard run that positioned the Bears at the Commanders' 5-yard line for a potential game-winning score. And instead, the Bears turned it over on downs for the second time in the game, this time after Darnell Mooney was literally centimeters away from securing the go-ahead score. Painful, but it's difficult to say Fields and the Bears deserve the victory of how they were playing on offense. Finally being unleashed a bit by necessity over the past 2 weeks, Fields in theory offers dual threat upside for Week 7. But Bill Belichick is about the worst possible X's and O's matchup for a struggling young single caller. So takeaway from the Bears, the red zone woes continued. I talked about the last possession of the game where they weren't able to convert. There was another one too where they went for it on 4th down and Khalil Herbert got stuffed. So they had some struggles and weren't able to come away with points. And honestly, probably should have just taken the field. Probably should have just gone for the field goal. I get wanting to go for it and score it and everything else too, but ultimately I think in certain situations you gotta understand what your offense is, and you just gotta take the field goal, or at least go for the field goal. Also, too, the offensive line can't block, as evidenced by all the hits that Justin Fields took, and the receivers have been struggling to separate and catch consistently. And I think that's the biggest problem for the Bears right now. Khalil Herbert, though, he's been a bright spot for the Bears and has earned more touches. Not to say he should take the job from David Montgomery, but you have 2 solid running backs. Let's find a way to get them both involved. And also, if you throw in Justin Fields' running ability and you get him doing more of his legs, the Bears could actually be a tough offense to defend once they build back the offensive line. Probably won't happen this season, but it's something they gotta work on and start adding in. Also, the play calling by offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, it's also been a bit problematic. Fields can be dangerous both as a runner and passer when he's out in space, but far too often it seems like they're asking him to win from the pocket. He has untapped potential. I still believe he does. As evidenced by the 88 yards he put on the ground and the touchdown strike to Dante Pettis. So overall takeaway from the game, well, this game is a prime example of bad quarterback play throughout the NFL. And in the NFL, there are the haves and the have-nots of the quarterback position, and the imbalance is a bit glaring. That's why the Bears were willing to trade up to get Fields in the 2021 draft, and it's why the Commanders are willing to take a chance on Wentz following his disappointing campaign with the Colts. The desired results, however, did not show up on Thursday night. Close to half of the NFL is seeing subpar quarterback play, which leads to the ugly games, the sort of ugly games we've seen over the past 2 Thursdays. Now, this isn't a new problem in the NFL, but it is an issue the NFL might want to take a look at, especially if they want to continue expanding its slate of standalone games. You want to sell fans on signing up for Prime Video to watch these games. You don't get them to do it like this when turnovers and field goals are the biggest selling point for these games. Players like Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan will continue to decline. Young quarterbacks on bad teams like Fields will also continue to struggle, There may never be enough true franchise signal colors to go around, and a large portion of the league will always be left finding ways to win without one. And for Washington, that means taking the ball out of Wentz's hands by running the ball, and also playing good defense. And for Chicago, that should mean allowing Fields to do what he does best, taking deep shots, throwing on the move, and scrambling. So, basically for Washington, I talked about it at the end of my discussion point with them, but Carson Wentz has not looked like the solution to at the quarterback position, and I talked about Ron Rivera also potentially being fired too. I mean, ultimately, he's in his 3rd season, hasn't really delivered much for the Commanders. Yeah, they have a division title and a playoff appearance, but they lost that playoff appearance. And really, division titles I don't think they should really mean that much. But ultimately, it looks like quarterbacks going to continue to be an issue for Washington. And in addition to possibly looking for an upgrade this offseason, maybe they also look for an upgrade at coach. And as for Fields, I would still stick by this guy. But I would also say, again, let's try to get him going with his legs a bit more and see what we can do. The offensive line is not good enough, so let's not have him stand in the pocket and take way more hits than he should. But I think definitely the Bears, they could go. They might be able. The Fields might be a franchise guy. I talked about that untapped potential. I still believe it's there, but I don't think he has the roster around him or the talent around him to take that next step. And I know for the Bears, this is, I don't know if it's quite a rebuild, but they're starting over, moving on from the Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace era to the Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus era, and I wasn't exactly expecting them to be contenders right out the gate, but yeah, I think I don't know where I was quite going with that, but yeah, I didn't expect them to be contenders out of the gate. So, but what I was looking for was potential, showing me what you can do well, and also what you don't do well, and then how do you improve on your strengths and weaknesses. And it looks like you got a strength in Fields' rushing ability, and if you can improve on that, it's a step in the right direction. But ultimately, I think the Bears just got to get through this season and then go into the offseason and really kind of beef up this offense, the offensive line, the wide receiver room. And also make sure you get Raquan Smith under contract too. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of NFL Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.